have sort of an awakening and you realize that there was a false narrative, and you can get clear on what the truth was, what the story really is, what your feelings are. If you don't really even know what you feel about yourself, you can look at a few things. You can look at, how do you talk to yourself? What are the things that you say to yourself? And we can tend to be very critical, saying things to ourselves, being very unforgiving, lacking in compassion, we haven't been shown a lot of empathy in our lives. So, that's going to be something that we have to manifest for ourselves. But of course, we know that we are that way for other people. We are very forgiving and very compassionate to other people. So we need to turn some of that in on ourselves and give ourselves a break. If we got involved with a romantic relationship or even friends that ended up being narcissistic and mistreating us, they targeted us because admired or things that they wanted to be more of, and they didn't want to get involved with someone who was a loser. That wasn't what they wanted. They wanted someone who's going to make them look good and improve their life. And so, that's what you were. You were someone that was better than them, and they knew that. And that's also why, if you have problems in your family, like say your mother is envious of you, this would be why. Why your friends become envious of you, this would be why. For those of you who don't know me very well, my story sort of begins in around 2001 when I had a heart attack at 33 years old. I was pushing myself too hard. I was taking care of everyone, and that's the third piece. The third piece is, do you let other people take advantage of you? Or are you a people pleaser where you put everyone's needs ahead of your own? And so that's the third piece. So how you talk to yourself, how you treat yourself, and how you let others treat you are the three things where you can sort of tap into knowing where you are at this moment. Are you loving of yourself now? Because the way I was treating myself back in those days when I almost killed myself, well, I did in fact kill myself. I came back. I was resuscitating, came back. I treated myself like I was not worthy of love, like I was undeserving, that I was, I had to earn love from everyone else by doing everything for everyone else, having no needs of my own. Or how I plan on getting validated is that one day they would be appreciative. They would appreciate me. And of course, that never happened, because when you're surrounded by narcissistic or sociopathic people, as I was, you're never going to get that back. Your needs met, and you're never going to get appreciation for all that you've done for them. That just because they feel entitled to it. They feel entitled to it, and they're impossible to please. What you have to do in your healing process, when you're healing from all this trauma, is you have to be able to put all of that, understand all of that, and put it in a box. Understand that you were trying to do an impossible thing. You were trying to earn love that was never coming, because these are relationships of inevitable harm. And it has nothing to do with you. It would have been inevitably harmful no matter who you had been. The fact that you ended up getting betrayed or abandoned or mistreated or whatever had nothing to do with you. That was going to happen regardless. Those relationships were going to end regardless. And that can be hard to wrap your head around when it's your parents. When it's your parents. And it can be very hard to love yourself when your own parents don't love you. What does that mean for me if my own parents didn't love me? And if you are involved with an abuser, they'll even help you to come to that conclusion by saying it to you. I remember my ex-husband saying to me, well, I can see why your parents had such a hard time loving you now. That's not fair. That's not right. That's just taking advantage of a pain point for me. That's just using my own pain and trauma against me, to weaponize against me. And of course, he weaponized my parents against me as well. The goal to get to is that you can weed through all of that and come to understanding the truth. And the truth will be what you have evidence of, what you have factual evidence of, not something people told you, not something someone said to you, not rumors, not gossip, not lies, not any of that, nothing of that. It's what you've seen, what you've experienced in your own real life. When I came to try and understand this myself, and I called this phase of my healing embracing reality. And what I came to understand was I was loved by my grandparents. My grandparents were very loving, and they taught me about love, and I was safe with them, and they were family, and they were loyal, and they were kind, and all of that. And they treated me like they felt really blessed to have me in their life. And that was a really great thing and very, very valuable. Because with my own parents, like they just couldn't wait for me to grow up. Like they, like and any extra need I had, like if I was, I was a small, vulnerable little girl. I was emotional. I was a girl. I was all these things. That made me the least popular with my parents. I had an older brother, so he was already more self-sufficient and less vulnerable than I was. And so that was their preference. I needed protection. I needed nurturing. I needed empathy. I needed, kindness and tenderness and sensitivity. And they just didn't have it. They just didn't have it. They were really not cut out for parenting at all. And especially not cut out for parenting a very especially sensitive and vulnerable child. Those of us who had this kind of upbringing, or any variation of narcissistic abuse, narcissistic family, we go through bouts of depression, and that can be another time just to hate yourself. You hate yourself for being depressed because you're not supposed to be depressed. You're supposed to be happy, and you look around and you maybe have a beautiful home and you have a family that looks really great and everything looks really good. And everyone outside thinks you have this perfect family and this perfect life, and you feel ungrateful. You feel like, why aren't I happier? Am I broken? And so you can start to really hate yourself for these very authentic, and once you've come to figure it out, these feelings that make a whole lot of sense. I remember when I was so depressed before my heart attack, being so depressed and going to my therapist and week after week and saying, I don't know what's wrong with me. I mean, everything in my life is perfect. And, she's upping me on all these antidepressants and stuff. Well, then when I have this heart attack and I get abandoned and betrayed by everyone closest to me, my husband and my parents, and they're cruel to me, and when I get my life saved, they're not even happy about it, I realize this is why I was depressed. All of this was hanging on just under the surface. I had to be feeling this in my life, and I just couldn't or I wouldn't identify it. And that was also when I understood, when it was undeniable, that I was not loved. I mean, from that point forward, there was no way for me to tell myself that I was loved, that this was love, and these were loving acts. And what happened from that point forward, because at this point it's very obvious, because it was a miracle that I was alive. And imagine if it's your own child that you just saw flatline and then their life was saved, how grateful you would be, and that I never saw anything like that. My grandparents were there and they showed me that, and so it was a contrast. Okay, so imagine for me, I have everyone in the world telling me I was wrong and unloving. No one knows the truth in my past life. My children knew the truth and they loved me. We had a very intimate and good relationship with my children, but one of my children died. And so there goes, that validation. How do you go on to maintain any sense of self-love when you have so many signs? And you just have to realize, you just have to understand that personality disorder people cannot love, and that's not your fault. That doesn't mean that you weren't lovable. It means that you were surrounded by people who couldn't love. You need to love yourself, and this, I understand, is also the reason that narcissistic abuse happened in my life. The reason I was surrounded by so many people who were unable to love me. I needed to learn to love myself, and I could only do that once everyone was cleared out. I was the only one left, and I had to love myself in order to save myself. I learned to love myself. Started with gratitude lists. I started with, writing some things about myself that I admired, that I really was proud of. And I even wrote down some things that I didn't like about myself, and I found a way to turn them around and be able to at least accept and embrace those qualities. I had to lose everything and everyone in order to learn to love myself. You don't have to do that. Hopefully you can learn to love yourself without doing that. The other thing is, if I had a near-death experience, and I also got to see that I was loved in the spirit world. I was fully, unconditionally loved and supported by loved ones and spirit guides and everybody in the spirit world. I was not alone. I felt in the earth plane like I was very alone, like I'd been abandoned by everyone I knew, and And it was, really an unusual thing to have that much cruelty and that much hostility around me and my children. It was really awful. But when I had my near-death experience, I realized that I was loved and supported in the spirit world. And so from that point forward, I didn't feel alone. I was able to tap into this, family and this support that I had, and I was able to talk to them. And since my son passed away, he's part of that. I talk to him still. I have a relationship with him still. And, I don't sense that he's gone at all. I sense that he's very much a part of my life, and I interact with him. There's a lot here if you can sort of get out of your own small perspective. If you can raise yourself up and realize that you chose this life. You chose these situations and these obstacles and these people and all of this. And you did it because you had a bigger perspective at the time. You didn't just see yourself as this human being in this earth body, in this, human life. You saw a much bigger perspective. I believe it will all be worth it, and that it all makes sense on some level, and that in my case, I remember making the intention that I was going to learn all about love and learn about giving and receiving love and loving myself in this life. And sure enough, that is exactly what I manifested to happen. And I didn't know, I didn't maybe necessarily know that was going to mean that I wasn't going to have love. Everyone else, every other source of love was going to be lost to me. I was going to, if I didn't love myself, I wouldn't be loved at all. I didn't maybe understand that, but I don't think that I would have turned it down anyway, because in the spirit world, my perspective on it was different. It wasn't as painful as it is as a human. As a human, everything's much smaller and, more constrained, and we don't see everything from the perspective we do when we are in the spirit world. And this might be a little woo-woo for all of you. I don't know. But that's basically what I believe and what I saw. Also what I saw when I died. So anyway, that's my 2 cents about self-love. And you can certainly start with the simple things. How you want to talk to yourself. Talk to yourself like someone you love. You need to treat yourself like this precious person, like this precious thing, because you are. And taking care of yourself and appreciating yourself and loving yourself is critical. And also, you show others how to treat you when you do that. It took me a while to break that cycle and understand that it was abuse and it wasn't love. And I had those definitions very mixed up. And that's what happens with those of us who have trauma and emotional abuse in our past. So anyway, that's it. That's how to love yourself. Start with the little things. Start with the things you say and the things you think about yourself. Talk nicely. Be a nice person to yourself. And be kind. Be kind. And help yourself. Get on your own side. You need yourself on your own side. Okay. Thanks a lot. See you next time.
Let me ask a little truth. I'd like to know your point of view.